Take Chumashim, guys. Okay, I want to finish up. I want to go on to Behar, but I want to finish up one thing in Emor on page 690. So, page 690, towards the end of Emor. I want to finish this up today. So you have over here this strange incident with a blasphemer. And the Torah says, bottom of page, last word on 690. Last word on 690. Vayetze ben Isha Yisraelis, the son of a Jewish woman. V'hu ben Ish Mitzri, who is also simultaneously the son of an Egyptian man. B'soch b'nei Israel. Vayinatzu b'machane, they fought. Ben ha-Yisraelis, the Isha Yisraeli. So what happened was, if you go, this goes back to the story of Dasan and Aviram. Dasan and Aviram were fighting. Sorry, not Dasan and Aviram. Moshe Rabbeinu, before that, Moshe Rabbeinu went out and he killed an Egyptian man. Right? He saw an Egyptian man whipping a Jew. So what happened? Why was this Moshe Rabbeinu killed him because he was saving the Jew? But why was this Egyptian man whipping the Jew to begin with? So the Gemara says, because I'll say, that this man, this Egyptian, saw a woman. Her name was Shlomis Bas Divri, which we're going to find out here in the Torah. He saw a woman and took a liking to her. And what he did was he woke her husband up in the middle of early in the night. It was still pitch black outside. Woke her husband up to go to work. Husband left the house. He went into the house and he violated the woman, Shlomis Bas Divri. So they had a child. This child was born. And she's the only Jewish woman who she thought it was her husband. And she ends up getting pregnant and having this child whose father's an Egyptian. So Rashi gives the background over here that he then decided to put his tent with one of the tribes, Yeshivat Ohr. He put his tent over there and they objected and they said that that's not his place. He's not from the tribe of Dan. And this guy went to Moshe Rabbeinu's Beis Din. And in Beis Din they said to him, sorry, you're not part of that tribe. And the guy left the Beis Din and he blasphemed, he cursed God. So that's one of the 7 Noachide laws. And he cursed Hashem. So Moshe Rabbeinu decides, okay, we got to figure out what to do with this guy. Vayikov ben ha'isha Yisrael, says Hashem. Vayikov, he curses. Vayikalel. Vayaviu asal Moshe v'shem imo Shlomis Bas Divri l'matei dan. And his mother's name is Shlomis Bas Divri. So you see over here that the woman's name originally wasn't mentioned. If you look at the Torah, first it says that he's the son of a Jewish woman, Isha Yisraelis. And only after the fact does it say, V'shem imo Shlomis Bas Divri l'matei dan. And the Gemara says, Chazal say, she's called page 682. She's called Shlomis because she was a little bit too forward with everybody. She's always saying, shalom, how are you? They're very talkative, what they call nowadays vivacious. What they call vivacious, we call unsteous. Right? She was always talking to everybody. Talk. Talking to women is one thing. But she always agreed, hi, how are you? What you call friendly, we call over friendly. For a woman to be too friendly, what they call friendly, we call unsteous. And as a result of her being so friendly, she got noticed, and therefore she was violated. And then this guy ends up going out and cursing. Now what you see over here is you see just genetics. You see how genetics works, even negative genetics. The mother misused her mouth. Because she was talking too much. And that gets passed on to the son. What does he do? He misuses his mouth also. Now, he curses. So people say, well, aren't you supposed to be friendly? Yeah, you're supposed to be friendly. Be friendly in the right way. But you're not supposed to cross lines. So the result of this is that this guy goes and he blasphemes, and then he's sentenced to death. Now, it says over here there's a progression over here. Well, how does it? What happened over here? So take a look. It's a very, very peculiar thing. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe lebar. Hashem says to Moshe, Hotzeas hamekalel al michutz lamachana. Take him out of the camp. 6 lines from the top. V'samchu kol hashomin es yedeim al rosho. Anybody who heard him has to put their head on their head. V'ragmu oso kol ha'eda. They apply the skila punishment. They apply stoning punishment. Please keep that door open over there, Rabbi. They apply the skila punishment. Do b'nei Yisrael tedaber lemor. And then to the Jewish people you say the following: Ish ki yakala leloha v'nosach eto. If a man curses, v'nokev shem Hashem mos yumas, he shall surely die. Ragom yirgamu v'kol ha'eda kager ka'ezrach b'nokvo shem yumas. Now you'll notice that it says first what the sentence is. If a guy blasphemes, he's sentenced to death. Then the Torah does something very strange. The ish ki yake kol nefesh adam mos yumas. If a guy kills somebody, he should also be put to death. What's that got to do with anything over here? Nobody killed anybody over the guy blasphemed. Why did the Torah go off now? Umake nefesh behema yisam. If you kill an animal, nefesh tachas nefesh. V'ite, if a man punches somebody, what he gets what shever tachas shever, ayin tachas ayin. Why did the Torah go off on a tangent over here? What happened over here? So this is the old. What do you call it? This is to lay to rest the oldest, what do you call it in the book, where it says, what's the difference what I do between me and God as long as I'm a good person? You ever hear that music? As long as I'm a good person. What defines being a good person? That's often left for, that's often personal opinion. I'm a good person. What's the difference whether I put on tefillin? And what's the difference whether I shave with a razor? And what's the difference whether I curse God? What's that got to do with me? But I'm a nice guy. I'm good to people. That's all that really matters. Comes along the Torah says no such thing. Torah says there's no such thing. You know what the result is? You curse God. You know where you're going to end up? Then you're gonna you'll end up, or may very well end up, killing people, because if you're cursing God and you don't care about God, so there are really no rules for you. Because I'm a nice guy as long as I got to be a nice guy, but at the point that I decide not to be a nice guy, so I'm not accountable to God. The Torah says there's no such thing as separating man. I told you, religion, Yiddishkeit, is vertical and it's horizontal. It goes upwards and it goes sideways. There are people in the world and there's a God in the world. And you have to do both. There's no such thing as, well, don't worry about my putting on tefillin as long as I'm good to people. But why are you being good to people? If you're good to people and you're ignoring God, that means you're only good to people because you want to be good to people. And then the day that you turn around and say, I don't want to be good to people, you won't be good to people. Especially when your passions are out of control. Especially when you've got some sort of temptation. Then all of a sudden everybody get out of my way. And therefore the Torah is telling you, the Mefarshim say over here, yeah, the guy cursed God. You know where this ends up? When cursing God is the ultimate, that's one of the 7 Noachide laws. It's one of the forbidden 7 Noachide laws. That's the ultimate in, I have no relationship with God. If you have no relationship with God, you know where you could end up with mankind. You can end up in a situation where you're going to end up killing people also. That's the difference. That's why the Torah follows with this over here. And they take this guy out, and this guy is what he called. They take him out, and then you take a look at the last pasuk. Vaydaber Moshe al bnei Yisrael, page 694. Vayotziu es hamekalel michutz lamachane. They take the cursor out. Vayirgumu also Evan. They stone him. Uvnei Yisrael asu kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe. They did as Hashem commanded Moshe. Why does the Torah emphasize that? They did it as Hashem commanded Moshe. Why does the Torah stick that in the last line over here?
It was not human judgment, it was God judgment.
Close. It's not human judgment. It's judge. He gave us the ways to judge it. Number one. Number two, there was no personal animosity here. They weren't killing him because somebody had a vendetta over here anyway. He's what do you call it? Yeah. He always takes my parking space. Good. I finally got a chance. Somebody give me a boulder, will you? Yeah. Right? Finally got my opportunity. Finally got the golden opportunity to take it out on the guy. No. Torah's telling you, they did kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe. This is all Hashem commanded Moshe. And I have to realize, when you look at the Torah, don't get frightened. You know, you look at the Torah, and all over the place it says, if you do this avera, most you must. If you decide that, put to death. But there's a lot of death in Torah. A lot of death in Torah. You would think that in ancient Israel, there were just bodies lining the streets, right? With all these people who were stoned, strangled, burnt, just all over the place. It rarely happened. It rarely happened. The Torah talks all about it, and it almost never happened. And not only it almost never happened, the Beis Din tried to not let it happen. They tried to get people off the hook. They did everything they can to get people off the hook. Why does the Torah talk about it so much? And it's interesting because in Christianity, Havdil, they always talk about turning the other cheek. Be a good Christian. Yeah. And who's shed more blood in history than anybody else? Those good Christians. They're the ones they just kind of forgot that page in the text. And somehow they had a mental lapse over there. Yeah, and the Muslims, they're a close second. A close second. They're also, you didn't, he got Muhammad had a lot of cooperation. He had a very persuasive argument. It was a really sharp sword, right? And that persuaded people. If you had any issues with Muhammad, so then you lost about 10 pounds very quickly, right from the shoulder up. Right? There was the Muhammad diet. The Muhammad diet was beheading people. Right? That was the famous Muslim diet. So the what do you call it? The Torah is telling you over here. The Torah talks about that. For this you chayiv misa. For this chayiv misa. It was so difficult to get a guy chayiv misa to actually carry out. Here you have the case in the Torah in the desert where this guy cursed God and he's put to death. Okay, let's go on. That's as far as the blasphemer. And let's go on to Parsha's Behar. Yeah.
Question: what happened to the other guy who was cursed by God's name?
The what?
Who was cursed by God's name? Something should have happened. Like he was cursed by God's name, like real name.
He didn't curse the guy. He just cursed God. He didn't curse the guy. He cursed God. The guy. Listen, there is a concept of cursing, but a curse will come true on somebody if there was also, a curse could come true if there is any sort of flaw in the person's behavior. If a person just walks up to somebody on the street and curses him, the curse is powerless if you've done nothing wrong. If there is a flaw, I'll get you 1 second. If there is a flaw, I knew a guy who was he was the upstairs neighbor, and he lived here in Israel. He wanted to close in his balcony. And often there are fights when people start closing in balconies or adding on their building. There are fights if you're blocking their view or if you're taking out, you're encroaching on their property, which is a legitimate gripe. This guy wanted to block in his balcony. He was upstairs, and the downstairs neighbor objected. He wasn't imposing on the boundary. He wasn't blocking their view. It wasn't anything. The downstairs neighbor objected, and they said that if you close it in, and it's an illegal closure, we're going to inform on you to the city, which means that they wanted to get paid off. And he said, I'm not bothering you. I'm going closing in, and we need an extra room. And they said, no. If you close it in, we're going to inform on you. And they wanted to pay. They wanted him to pay them. So they forgot one thing. He was living upstairs, they're living downstairs. So remarkably, he decided to start practicing his left-handed dribble at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And he was dribbling a basketball, and he was banging on the floor with a kitchen broom, that sort of thing. The downstairs neighbor tried banging on the ceiling with a broom. That's not the same. You got the high ground. You could eat an apple and dribble at the same time. So things were getting nasty, and one day his wife was coming home. Now he's American, his wife is Israeli Sephardi, and the two neighbors downstairs were Israeli Sephardi. And the two Sephardi women met in the parking lot, and his wife was coming home, and the other woman from downstairs, she said to his wife, I just want you to know, I just came back from a funeral, and I cursed you and your entire family in front of an open grave. So his wife freaked out and went home, and he went downstairs and kicked down the door, and the police were invited, and everybody made a peace treaty. Eventually they worked out some sort of amicable agreement. So I told people, I don't know that a curse in front of an open grave is any worse than a curse, in the middle of a basketball court. I don't know that, it gives you the heebie-jeebies, like, we just got back from an open grave. Woo! All you need is a couple of women to get what do you call it over here. But if you want to curse somebody in front of bodies, just open up your freezer where you got some chickens, them dead frozen chickens in there. They're also dead bodies, and you can curse them in front of your freezer. But somehow an open grave. So there is a concept of cursing, people. There's a concept of cursing people. Somebody was going to ask a question, yeah.
Yeah, like cursing in the Bible is like something pretty specific, right? Rather than saying like the F word or whatever.
Right.
Arbitrary word.
Right. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Yake Yose Yes Yose. You're cursing that God should. God should do something. Should harm himself, so to speak. It's a strange turn of phrase. And actually, in the court case in Beis Din, The Gemara says, a guy comes into Beis Din, two guys are, you need, in order to execute, you always need two witnesses. They warn the guy and so on and so forth. So apparently he had all the circumstances here. But in the court case, the Gemara says the two witnesses, the entire time, they use what Hebrew is called a kinui. They don't actually say what he said. They say, like darn. He didn't say darn. Let's say he said damn. They said darn. They don't say the actual word. Then, before the Beis Din sentences him, they send everybody out. They say to the witnesses, now say exactly what the guy said. And then at that point, they have to pronounce the exact curse. The Beis Din should hear the exact curse the guy said, and then the two witnesses say it, and the judges rend their garments when they've now heard an actual curse. The witnesses aren't killed, obviously, because they're testifying. But in order to actually execute the guy, there has to be no question about what he said, and the witnesses, what he called, the witnesses say it. Okay? That's the...
There's not like in ancient times, was there such thing as like you call them bad words, like just like words?
Bad nivel pay, yeah, there is such thing as using crude, inappropriate language, yeah. I don't know, in ancient time, but certainly the Gemara says nivel pay, what we would call dirty, off color, that for sure.
But that's not the same as
That's not a cursing. That's not cursing. Here we're talking about specifically aiming at a God as opposed to a guy who hit his finger with a hammer.
right.
And I heard about a guy, by the way, gets stuck on the highway and he's fixing a flat tire, and his friend says to him, I was impressed you fixed that flat tire. I saw, how did you do it? He says, well, I used the car jack, and they, well, I thought you resorted to prayer. He said, why? He said, well, based on the language that I heard you saying, I figured you were praying over there. so that all of that is the bad words or dirty jokes or that sort of thing. That's not what the Torah is talking about over here. Okay, good question. Okay, let's go on to that. Parsha's Behar, 696. We're going to see an interesting concept here. V'daber Hashem o Moshe Behar Sinai Lebor. Hashem speaks to Moshe at Har Sinai. Right off the bat, that triggered that. Can we turn on the air? It's summer. Yeah, I think so. It's kind of what do you call it here? It's by the guys, it's going to be hot for the next week. It's going to be over 30 for the whole week. 32, 132 is, I think it's multiplied by 1.8 and add 32. So it's you're talking about that's how you kind of calculate the from centigrade to regular. That's how you the calculation is 30 degrees multiplied by 1.8 and add 32, and you get hot. That's what it equals hot. So it's going to be 30. The low 30s is around. I think it's high 80s. Then when we start hitting 36, 37, 39, so then we're that's already getting to the big leagues. So the Torah says over here, "V'daber Hashem Moshe Behar Sinai Lemor." Now, right off the bat, you should wonder, Hashem always spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai, and all of a sudden here the Torah mentions Har Sinai. So you take a look at Rashi, and then we're going to see the Shmita laws. That you got to let the land go fallow every 6 years. You got every 7th year. You got to so look at Rashi. The first Rashi on the page, right column. Behar Sinai. My idyon Shmita etzel Har Sinai. What's Shmita got to do with Har Sinai? Meaning, we know Shmita got to Har Sinai because it was given. Meaning, why specifically Shmita in connection to Har Sinai, this parsha, as opposed to everything else? V'halo kol ha-mitzvos nemru mi-Sinai. All mitzvahs were said at Sinai. Ela ma Shmita nemru kloloseha upratoseha v'dikuseha b'Sinai. Shmita had all of its details and specifics were said at Sinai. Af kula nemru kloloseha v'dikuseha mi-Sinai. So too, all the mitzvahs, all the details of Shabbos and Yontif and what Shatnez and everything, it was all said at Sinai. That's what Rashi says. But my friends, that does not answer the question. Well, if they were all said at Sinai, it still didn't answer the question. Great, so you've told me that what aspects of Sinai were said at what aspects of Shmita were said at Sinai. And based on that, we can project and say that all mitzvahs, the aspects of Tefillin, where all the details were said at Sinai. Shkoyach. That didn't answer the question. The question was, and why is Shmita mentioned its connection to Sinai? Say, why didn't you mention Shatnez with connection to Sinai? Why didn't you mention, Tefillin with connection to Sinai? Why are you mentioning Shmita with connection to Sinai? That the Rashi didn't answer. what does Rashi mean here? What does Rashi mean here? So the Mepharshim say like this, there are, all the mitzvahs were given at Sinai. Can you handle it? Can you handle shatnez? I can handle shatnez. Don't wear wool and linen. Somebody hold me back. I can handle that. Well, I'll wear cotton. That's okay. Cotton and wool is fine. Linen. To this day, I don't even know what a linen is if I saw it on the street. So don't wear wool and linen. You didn't either, right? Yeah, wool and linen. That's the old linen guy over there. No, all right. So we'll take it. So I'll wear a suit without linen in it. Okay. What about chazer? What about chazer? They can't eat pork. Do you know that the Gemara says? In Chulin that every prohibition that the Torah gives us, there is an equal permissible something. So, for example, you're not allowed to live with a married woman, but you could marry a divorcee whose husband is still alive. That's the next best thing. If that's what your excitement is. Oh, well, at least I got what she used to be married. It's similar. You can't eat pork. So what are we going to do instead of pork?
Lamb bacon.
What?
Lamb bacon.
Lamb bacon. That's not what the Gemara said. At the time of the Gemara, they didn't have it. In the time of the Gemara, they said there's a fish called a shibuta, and apparently the brains of this fish taste just like very similar to pork. Okay, I'll take their word for it. I'm not going to do it. I'll take their word for it. Chazal said it, so I'll just trust them. But I'm not eating no fish brains. But at the end of the day, there's okay, you can't do that. It's doable. It's doable. They're enough. Even nowadays, that's what Avi is saying. Nowadays, you can even have kosher bacon. Kosher bacon.
And turkey bacon.
Turkey bacon. Kosher bacon. Is that what they call it? Faking the bacon. Yeah. And in case, I told you can have a cheeseburger two different ways. You can have a beef burger with parva cheese, and you can have a parva burger with real cheese. Right? And they even have the Impossible Burger now that bleeds like a burger. Baruch Hashem, we took care of the problem of cheeseburgers. Now, all we got to do is open up a kosher, instead of a McDonald's, we'll call it a McDaniel or something, and we'll serve all the tray food in a kosher way. Baruch Hashem, we've had pepper. I saw once a pizza with pepperoni on it, and it turned out it was vegetarian. It was parva pepperoni. I'm telling you, the thing looked as treif could be. So you gotta
genetically modified food.
Genetically modified food. Now they have genetically modified people. We're good to go. Everything is wonderful. It's a beautiful world. Okay, so everything's been taken care of here. Everything we got it all. You got it all worked out. Okay, it's all doable. Do you know somebody once said? You know how many kosher products are on the market today across the world? How many? Take a number.
5 million.
5 million? My good. Okay, I saw that's how much food Jews consume over Shabbos. I saw a study that says there are over 300,000 products that have kasher supervision. And some of them are actually kosher too, by the way. 300,000 products have kasher supervision. What's that? You say you can't. Wait, so you can't eat a treif steak. There are plenty of good kosher steakhouses. You can't have a fried chicken. You can't eat what's it called, Kentucky Fried Chicken. So you find some kosher fried chicken. There's plenty of good kosher food. It's doable. Shabbos is a little bit of an inconvenience. Shabbos is doable. It's all doable. There's one issue that's tough. Imagine the President of the United States right now, they're running for re-election. Well, they can't run. He can barely walk, so he's not running, that's for sure. One of them could barely walk. Right? And so they're running for re-election. Okay, so what do you call it? Now imagine the new president. Okay, sir, can you tell us what your policy is going to be if you're elected president? Yes. Every 6 years, everyone in the country becomes unemployed with no social benefits. There are no government benefits. You're unemployed every 6 years, enforced year off with no funding whatsoever, and you can't work at all. Even if you can't work at all. It's not going to be a popular position for a guy who wants to become the president. Comes along the Torah, and the Torah says, by the way, I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is you're going on vacation every 6 years. It's an agricultural society. You own land. You're farmers. Every 7th year, you're not allowed to work your field. And not only that, there's no source of parnasa for you other than a promise from Hashem that your 6th year produce will produce a bumper crop. No one in the world, man-made, no politician, no human being would ever try to push that sort of policy on people if he expects to get elected. To the contrary, they always say people vote their wallets. The economy's down, you're going to lose the election. That was what Clinton's slogan was against George H.W. Bush. Remember the slogan? It's the economy, stupid. He was talking about foreign policy, what's happening in China, what's happening in Israel, the Middle East. Nobody in America cares what's happening in the Middle East. People in America care about two things. They care about their money and they care about sports. That's it. Nobody cares about what's happening with a bunch of different colored people in the Middle East. Nobody really cares. And the president knows if the economy is up, you get reelected. The economy is down, you lose the election. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. So it comes along the Torah says, okay, every 7 years you're unemployed. Every 7 years you're going to have to rely on God's promise. Say to Meforshim, that's why the Torah says Shmita is connected to Sinai. Because that's a law that could only have come from Sinai. Tefillin, I could do tefillin. Shatnez, it's not like I could live without shatnez. Money, oh, now there's the great equalizer. Oh, and you're telling me that the entire people are unemployed now, the entire economy is shot for a year? Well, with the promise that you'll be okay. I wouldn't vote for a guy like that. It's a good thing we're not voting for Torah. The Torah says, do it. And therefore, the connection to Sinai. Because a law like that could only have come from Sinai. A law like that had to have been made in Sinai. No human being in their right mind would try to come up with an idea like that. And therefore, the Torah begins, that's what the Meforshim say, that's what Rashi means. Sinai, all the laws of Shmita, with the details, and no work. That comes from Sinai. And therefore, you can bet that everything else comes from Sinai as well. Okay, now what does it involve here? So, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'marta aleim, second pasuk, Ki savo el aretz asher ani nosein lachem, v'shavsa ha'aretz Shabbos la'Hashem. The land is going to take a break. The land is going to take a break. What's the break going to be? 6 shanim tizra sadecha. 6 years you're going to sow your fields. V'sheish shanim tizmar karmecha. You take in your vineyards. V'asaftes tuasa uvashana hashvis in the 7th year. Shabbos Shabboson yeh la'aretz. It's going to be Shabbos for the land. Shabbos Lashem Sodcha lo Sizor v'charmecha lo Zidbar, and all the ensuing laws of Shmita. That you're not allowed to work the fields have to grow fallow, and so on and so forth. What's the idea? What's the idea of Shmita? So there's the most basic idea of Shmita, there are several ideas that are mentioned here. Why does the Torah want this? And you'll notice it says Shabbos LaHashem. One of the benefits of Shmita, and I've told you that whenever there's a command in the Torah, there's always some sort of benefit that's attached to it. You will always find the benefit of a mitzvah. It doesn't mean that that's the main reason. It doesn't mean it's the only reason, but it's certainly something that God had in mind when He gave the mitzvah. Agriculturally, if you work your land, what they have found is, coincidentally, that when you're a farmer and you work your field, after 6 years, the nutrients of the field, the nutrients of the soil start to become depleted. And what they found is that you leave the field for a year without working the field, it re-nourishes itself. There's certainly a benefit there. But the Torah emphasizes Shabbos LaHashem. That's not why we're doing it. It may be a benefit. We're doing it because Hashem commanded. Why did Hashem command? So the answer is, what does Shabbos emphasize to us? The regular Shabbos. What's the lesson of Shabbos? Recharge. That's among other benefits of Shabbos, depending on how much cholent you had. Right?
From what normally occupies us so we can remember why we're really living life.
Why we're living life. What does the Torah itself say? What's the most, what? 3 words. Zecher l'maaseh bereishis. That means, if I say, it's my ball, and you can play with it, but not on the 7th day. I make the rules, just so you remember that it's my ball. That's the only reason I'm making the rule. I'm lending you the basketball, you can play with it, but not on the 7th day. You know why? I want you to remember that it's my ball. And the only way I can make you remember that it's my ball is that you understand while you're getting caught up and you're all caught up in the sweaty and running around, missing shots. So you'll, at the end of the day, you'll remember that it's mine. How do you remember? Because all of a sudden, we can't play today. Why? It's Kaplan's ball. Because Baruch Hu created the world. So by the way, I want you to remember that I did it. You know how you're going to do? You can do whatever you want with the world. You can work the world, work the soil, do whatever you want. But you know how you're going to remember it's mine? You have one day, there's a rule that's a constant reminder. It's called Shabbos. It's a reminder that God created the world. Okay, the Jewish people leave Egypt. They come to Eretz Yisrael. Israel, Eretz Yisrael. How do you remember that Eretz Yisrael belongs to Hashem? Here we are in Eretz Yisrael with a Beis HaMikdash. Everything is, wow, we're on top of the world. How do you remember that Eretz Yisrael belongs to Hashem? Shmita. 1 year every 7 years. What Shabbos is to the world, Shmita is to Eretz Yisrael. And that's why the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says when the Jewish people didn't keep Shmita, what's the punishment for not keeping Shmita? What? Exile. If you would ask a guy, what's the punishment for not working, for not letting the soil grow? Well, the punishment would be the soil should grow thorns, or you have a lousy crop. That should be the punishment. That would seem to be the punishment that fits the crime. But it's not what the Mishnah says. What's the punishment for not keeping Shmita? Exile. Whoa. That's fight man's words. Why, exile? Why don't you give me some, what do you call it? Have it grow some, what do you call it? Something, have it grow sushi or something. That'll be a punishment. Why should it, yeah.
That'd be a punishment.
Because I don't like sushi. That's why it would be a punishment. Yeah, that's why it'd be a punishment. I don't like sushi. Listen, anybody with any self-respect doesn't, Avi.
It's a privilege to eat sushi.
And I know that you guys like sushi. Most of you like sushi, and I only wonder which defect in you is it that has caused you to come to this point that you like sushi.
My creator for me.
Yeah, I know, but he didn't. Yeah, well, I just can't stand the stuff. Okay, I got that off my chest. The what do you call it? The first time I had sushi, the first time I had sushi was a really bad situation. I was in England, and I had gone to the Ohr Somayach branch, and I had flown in. And as soon as I got there, there was a backyard wedding. The chief rabbi of England at the time was there, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And I get to this wedding. I just came from the airport, and immediately the people at Ohr Somayach, they took me to participate in this wedding. And we're in the backyard somewhere with all these fancy people, and the tables are set, and I'm starving. I just traveled in. I didn't know what to do. And the table's set, and there's sushi. And there was the nearest thing. I couldn't find anything else. So, while nobody was looking, so I took a piece. I've never had sushi before, so I took a piece of sushi, and I just kind of got it. I'm in a wedding over it. This was, and I could barely swallow it. It was terrible. It was probably with that seaweed, whatever that seaweed, the little eagle weed is, whatever, and it was terrible. And I didn't even know what to do. And I'm sort of, till I finally found the napkin. I managed to stash it, but it was terrible. In any event, the punishment for Shmita is exile. Why? Because you're not acknowledging the fact that God gave you the land of Israel. If he gave you the land, you acknowledge it by playing by his rules. You're not playing by his rules, get out. That's the punishment for Shmita. Now, do you know the story? There's an apocryphal story. Apocryphal. To what defect do you attribute not knowing what that word means? The apocryphal means it's not a real story. It's a lesson story. So there's a story like this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises you not only that the 6th year will produce enough, the 6th year is going to produce enough for 3 years. It's going to produce for the 6th year, the 7th year, the 8th, the 6th, and the beginning of the from the end of the 6th year till the beginning of the 9th year. In 7th year and the 8th year, it's going to have a 3-year bumper crop. Now you got to believe that. So the second idea behind Shmita is the test of faith. Shmita is a test of faith. Do you believe or you don't believe? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling you that if you do it, it's going to produce for you. It's a big test, by the way. The test of money is always, anything involving money is a big test. And the Torah says, give tzedakah, and by giving tzedakah, you could get rich. It's a big test to give away your money, and it's counterintuitive. If I want my money, the Gemara says, melach mamon chaser. If you want to salt your money, which means to preserve it, decrease it, meaning give tzedakah. That's a counterintuitive. If I want to consult, if I want to salt my money, I'm going to keep it, not give it away. What sense does that make? The answer is that it's a test of faith. So you're in a situation over here where your faith is genuinely being tested. So there's an apocryphal story about a guy who's a very, very wealthy man, extremely wealthy. And he has 3 wealthy son-in-laws and three wealthy sons and 3 wealthy son-in-laws. And this guy comes to the rabbi and he says, Rabbi, I have a faith crisis. What's your problem? He says, I'm a very wealthy man. My 3 sons are very wealthy. Our 3 son-in-laws are wealthy. Barring a global apocalypse, I don't see any way God could make me poor. So the rabbi says, God could do anything. He says, yeah, that's what I've heard, but I don't see any way. What's God going to do? Other than a total collapse of the world, how could God make me poor? The rabbi says, God could do anything. The guy says, well, I'm just having trouble believing. And he leaves the rabbi's office. The rabbi says, listen, you're talking dangerous. He says, what can I do? He leaves the rabbi's office. As he walks into the street, for the first and only time in his life, he feels an overwhelming urge to convert to Christianity. Never felt this urge before. Goes to the local church and he knocks on the door. The priest opens the door. There's a Jew with a shtreimel, a beard payas. He says, listen, I want to embrace your religion. He says, what do you want? Shtreimel, beard, and payas. What do you want? You're bothering me. He says, I want to embrace your religion. Why don't you baptize me? He says, listen, the only way I believe you're sincere, you're going to have to sign over all of your material possessions to the church. The guy says, fine. He brings out a form. He signs over, I, Yankel Schwartz, sign over all my material possessions to the church. Priest takes the paper, puts it in his desk drawer, says, come back tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we'll baptize you. Guy leaves, walks out into the street, and the urge to convert leaves him. Guy thinks, well, what have I just done? I've signed over all my material, but I'm penniless and destitute. My sons, they're going to give me a dime, they're going to sit shiva for me. My son-in-laws are going to disown me. I'm poor as a shoal mouse. Goes back to the rabbi. Rabbi, I have a problem. I'm poor as can be, and I don't see any way God can get me out of this. Rabbi says, haven't we been through this once before today already? Guy says, yeah, but he says, do you believe? I believe. Do you believe? I believe. In the middle of talking, all of a sudden here's a fire engine. There's a fire in the church. No more desk, no more paper, no more priest. The whole thing is gone. He's back to right where he started. So the Torah is telling you, in life, the person person does not see, you don't see your way out. Person's trapped. I don't see any way out of the situation. I don't have a parnasa. I don't see how God could bring me a parnasa. I don't have health. I don't see how God could make me healthy. I don't see how a person's trapped. I say that's what Shmita is. Shmita is, you know what? You're going to cast it on HaKadosh Baruch Hu now. Imagine what that is. Imagine you take it, you work, you're an accountant, take a year off, and you have a year off unpaid vacation. That's what the Torah is talking about. That's what Shmita is. Shmita is the lesson in faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay. Take a look at, there's another idea here. The other idea is, there's a Hasidic Rebbe, and there's a very wealthy man, another wealthy man. And the Hasidic Rebbe decides to go over to this wealthy man's house. There's a very poor family, and he wants to get some money for this poor family. So he goes down, he walks towards this man's house in the dead of winter somewhere in Poland. And the Rebbe goes walking up the walkway. This guy's sitting in the house, and he looks out the window. He says, ooh, the Rebbe's coming, the famous Rebbe. So the guy goes running out of the house in his shirt sleeves to greet the Rebbe. So the Rebbe says, Shalom Aleichem, Reb Feivel, Shalom Aleichem, how are you? Yeah, good. He goes, listen, there's a poor family over here in the town, they don't even have firewood for their fire, and it's a freezing winter. And he says, yeah. He says, listen, we need a job. I said, yeah, come, Rebbe, just come in. He says, listen, they're really suffering. Yeah, Rebbe, come in. Finally, the Rebbe agrees to go into the house, and Feivel writes him out a nice, generous check. He says, Rebbe, I got to ask you one thing. Why do we have to stand outside and talk? You kept me outside for a long time. Why couldn't you just come right into the house? So Rebbe says, listen, if I would have come into your nice, cozy, warm house, and I would have told you there's a family that doesn't have firewood, So you'd write me out a check for $18, whatever it is. Hey, I got a token check. Once you're standing outside in your shirt sleeves and you could appreciate what it's like to be in the freezing cold and you can't warm up, all of a sudden that got you warmed up a little bit. Instead of the numerical value of chai, you gave me the numerical value of mace, which is a lot more. Chai is 18, mace is 430. I say, you give me more money because you could empathize, you could relate to what it's like for those poor people. The idea of Shmita is you own property, you own land, you have a parnasa. You know there are people who don't. And a guy knocks on your door, and nowadays people are constantly, you get a little impatient. Come on, buddy, get a job. Go get a job like the rest of us. Or go get a rich uncle like the rest of us. Something. But don't, you know what, you know what? Now you know what it's like not to own land. Your land is hefker. You don't own the land anymore. Everybody can walk onto your field and take what they want for an entire year. You don't own the land. You don't own the land. Now you know what. How does it feel? It feels so good. Good. The next time after Shmita, somebody knocks on your door and he says, listen, I got to marry off my kid, or I got medical bills, or I can't put bread on my table, and I don't have anything. So now you know what it's like not to have. And the Torah is teaching you the whole Shmita year is a 1-year Ulpan in empathy. So you realize what somebody else is going through a little bit. It's a rule in life, by the way. Nobody can empathize with somebody else unless they've been through it. People didn't have children. Only they can empathize with a couple that doesn't have children. Somebody who's been through an illness, only he can empathize. Somebody who's lost a family member, only they can empathize with somebody to understand what they're going through. And the Torah is saying, you know what? Now you'll understand what they're going through a little bit, because now you'll see what it's like not to have. And that's a very disconcerting. I know people who rent and they're desperate to buy, not because they're throwing away the rent money. The rent money is just money that's being thrown away. Because they feel they don't have the, the peace of mind of knowing they own something. I know many people like that. There are people who pay mortgages. They could just as easily put the money in the bank and rent much nicer and bigger residences. And people won't do that. Because they want to feel that they want to feel they've got something. You know, this happens all the time. You want to feel you got something, and all of a sudden, this year you don't own anything. So for at least 1 year, even though you know at the end of the year you're going to get it back, but for 1 year you know what it feels like not to have. Torah is teaching you how to empathize with others. All right, TBC.